something that's been being widely talked about right now with everything going on with coronavirus and people getting sick and then recovering, but having this kind of extended periods of chronic fatigue syndrome and being diagnosed with CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, myeloencephalitis, brain fog. I just read an article that was published by PBS where they're talking about long haulers, COVID long haulers, meaning they have COVID, but they're in for the long haul with being sick and being ill and not really recovering and having chronic fatigue. And then they're talking about how this is kind of being recognized by the CDC, and a lot of people with chronic fatigue are told, like, this is all in your head, there's nothing going on, and kind of pushed under the, pushed aside. And that's like infuriating. But in fact, it's not actually a disease. Chronic fatigue, brain fog is a symptom of an underlying disease or an underlying problem and not underlying something else. And if we start trying to like have lots of energy drinks or push ourselves through or try to find focus, it actually makes things worse. And if for any of you who've had chronic fatigue, you know exactly what I mean. And in fact, that was what I experienced. For those of you who don't know me, I am a physician sharing about mind-body medicine, how the body heals itself, how disease is an indicator that there's something that needs to shift within us to allow not only health, but a much, much greater expansion of how we're really meant to live. And I had experienced back in medical school really severe chronic fatigue, brain fog, and autoimmune disease, severe chronic pain, had like a bunch of different diagnoses, but really felt this way of what people are talking about in the article, like brushed aside, like we don't even know what to do with you here. And I want to share that, especially when it's like you get a viral illness like COVID-19 and your body's not quite recovering and you're kind of dragging this along. What I've seen, your body's ready for a reboot and we're just not letting it happen. What does that mean? When we have a viral illness, or really, really any illness that we ever have, it allows a rewrite in your body. Meaning your immune system is changed permanently, forever, and actually really helpful ways. Your digestive system, your microbiome is changed. Your brain, nervous system, your brain activity, it's all changed. It's a rewrite. It isn't actually a bad thing, like how we kind of make disease be wrong and bad and like there's something wrong with you. What if you remember that your body is getting new information, especially from viruses? Like I think it's like 80% of our DNA has been received from like viruses, bacteria that are in harmony with the body. We get information from the DNA in these microorganisms. So what if instead of what's wrong with this, what's right about this, that if I could receive it, it could allow a reboot, a revamping, a rearrangement in my body, in my DNA, in who I'm being, for my awakening, for something higher, which is actually what's in place. And I know experience-wise, like what I experienced, it was 100% true. When I finally received that quote disease and let the rewrite happen, I functioned in an entirely different way. And what I received from that disease was my body was trying to tell me, like, let go. You don't need to be pushing the boulder up a hill. Your life is not about overcoming and achieving and accomplishing and doing more. And everything about that disease experience with chronic fatigue, brain fog, autoimmune disease, my approach was like kind of how I approached life. Overcome, get beyond this, don't let it hold me down, do more, achieve more. And it really was there when I finally surrendered and was ready to listen to show me, Kim, this is not how you need to do life. Let go, allow the rewrite. It's okay to let this in. And what I received was life can be effortless. It's okay to let go. I don't have to run from myself. I don't have to try to be more. I am enough as I am. And it's okay to stop trying to change that, which was like the scariest thing in the world, because I thought if I stopped running, the fatigue would just devour me and I would just be like a blob of nothing. I had to fight it. So when I finally stopped fighting and received it, that was the download. And it was like, Life is meant to be easeful. You are enough exactly as you are. Let go. And the quote rewrite that I'm talking about, which is definitely a cellular DNA physiologic rewrite, but it was also a consciousness rewrite. So I moved from the consciousness of fight hard, get ahead, overcome, do more, into a space of I receive myself as I am. I embrace myself as I am. I allow myself to be as I am. I listen instead of doing, and allow the higher self to do the doing. I mean, it was a massive rewrite, and I'm just kind of scratching the surface on what that was for me, but I had to really listen and begin to let it in instead of making it wrong, which I think of all the illnesses I've assisted people in overcoming as a doctor, this has been the one that's like the densest. That is like, no, I've got to fight this. I can't let this slow me down. I'm so sure this is going to just hold me back in this place I don't want to be in. And for me, and like everybody I've worked with, they've begun to open and see, whoa, maybe there's something else here that if I could surrender and let go, I would let more in. I would let abundance in. I would let ease in. I can let true freedom in instead of the conditional freedom I'm chasing after. So when I read this article about the COVID long haulers, it said how COVID long haulers might renew the focus on chronic fatigue syndrome. And it talked about how so many of those people, someone described it, the fatigue is profound. It's like wearing a suit of armor and the floor is a magnet. Heavy, 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 heavy densities. And that was certainly how I felt when I experienced chronic fatigue as well. Someone said it's like being held to your bed with invisible straps day in and day out. So what I've felt into with the COVID long haulers, where it's like the integration's not happening, there's not that reboot, and then the body's like, boom, I'm better off than before I had this experience. Which we know is the case for like childhood illnesses. They get the chicken pox and now they're resistant to the chicken pox, but they're also resistant to multiple forms of like cancer and lymphoma and diseases that could come later in life. That actually the information carried in that virus and the rewrite that happens in their immune system makes them more resilient and able to be more healthy throughout their lives into adulthood. So wait a minute, let's approach disease in a different way. Let's approach these infections in a different way. And what I've seen myself and with other people with this COVID is that we're really moving into a new consciousness. We've been living in a consciousness of fear, and we're seeing that all come to a head right now with like most people have been living in unconscious fear. And as long as I don't go outside of the margins of that, I don't even notice that I'm living in fear. But as soon as something happens, you see it, right? Like a pandemic, and we're told you could die any second and there's this bad thing and it's invisible and you don't know who has it. Like all the components of what propagates the deepest fear, right? You can't see it, you can't control it, you don't know where it is and where it isn't. So there's no way to actually like protect yourself. All the things of the unknown, which is our greatest fear, are being triggered by this pandemic. And it's really bringing up all the spaces where we as a collective are willing to live from fear instead of live from love, from truth, from knowing, from serenity, from I am resilient. It's okay. I can reside in my body and let the wisdom of my body do its thing. When we're in fear, we know it blocks all of that. It blocks our immune system. It blocks our digestive system. It blocks even our brain functioning. And so we're seeing the world through like little tunnel vision instead of awareness of the big picture. Like, is this really true for me? Or, what's really going on here? What's actually the best way to handle this? We don't access any of that when we're looking through the fear lens, which is this tiny little pinhole of, what do I need to do? Tell me now. And we close down higher awareness. So when we allow the wisdom of the body to come in, the body can recover from things like COVID or other viruses or Lyme or Epstein-Barr virus. We had a great interview with Jessica Craven, who's been our customer service person for the last several years, who recovered from chronic fatigue syndrome, severe brain fog, in the bed for 3 years, diagnosed with Lyme disease, this is a really severe thing so many people are struggling with. How did she come into total health, resilience, doesn't have any of these diseases? And many people are still, propagating that cycle over and over. And what we see is when we stay in resistance and fear, we become like what this article is talking about, the COVID long haulers, where the body doesn't integrate it, doesn't allow a rewrite and a reboot and come back into not only back into resilience, but even greater resilience and greater health and greater vitality than before we had the illness. So what I'm looking at is exactly all of these things that are the reason why some people respond and they're in an even higher state, and some people like succumb and stay in this, cycle of more and more and more illness and disease. So if you could just begin today, and we did create the Mind Body Solution for chronic fatigue to bring you deeper into this integration and really allow that rewrite and that reboot, so you're not like in resistance, staying in that resistance and staying in the chronic fatigue brain fog cycle, but you actually allow the resilience of your body to take over. But in this moment, and for those of you who are here live, you can tell me what you notice. Just soften your body and breathe more fully by taking a few breaths to let your breath even out, meaning in breath is about as long as the out breath. So you're maybe inhaling for 4, exhaling for 4, and let the breath deepen, meaning as soon as you relax your shoulders, your breath will come more into your belly, and even just 2% less into the upper lungs, chest, shoulders, upper rib cage. That shift alone changes your brain patterning. So you're more able to hear what I'm talking about and more able to allow the relaxation response in the body to take over and let the fight or flight response diminish. So you sort of rebalance your body right now in this moment. You allow a little bit of rebalancing. That has been shown to be exactly what allows this rewrite in the body, where yes, you go through with an acute illness, whatever the imbalance is, which has lots of benefits. Like you're going to slow down. You're going to take a look at like, whoa, have I been taking care of my body? Maybe eating this way is not been so great. What else could I do to nurture myself? Maybe you look at your relationships, because when we're wiped out and we have no energy, we're like, those things are not serving me. What would it take for me to let that go? What actually nurtures me? What actually inspires me? Who is really here that really is on board for me, instead of like the codependence of the, conditional relationships? We're going to look at everything. So let the illness serve you. It's a rewrite. It's a reboot. Be willing to go in and, like I say, go down to come up, because that heaviness that feels like this dense oppression is actually just meant to bring you into a pause, to let everything go that is not who you are. To let the ideas that, but I have to keep this job and keep going and push hard, or I won't have any money, or, but I have to do it because no one's going to do it for me. Like we're blocking resources. We're I'm on my own. I'm in this conclusion. So these are just beliefs. Or I have to stay in these relationships because if I leave, fill in the blank with your fear of choice, right? So will I live from fear, or what if I pause and just begin to ask, what's right about this I'm not getting? And what could I begin to let in that could let all of this shift? So I'm not living from fear on the hamster wheel, but I'm actually living in abundance and letting more and more abundance in by the moment. Thank you for all the hearts and the love. So I felt a lot of compassion for these people who are in this this pattern, who are like in the heaviness of like, no, I gotta keep going. That's the old consciousness that's ready to fall away, sort of like still trying to run in your system. It can't run in your system anymore. We are having a collective shift in consciousness from fear, limitation, lack. I'm a physical body. I've got to fend for myself, to truth, unity. I'm connected with everyone and everything around me. I'm an infinite being having a physical experience, and it's okay for me to let that in 2% more, even though I don't understand it, even though maybe I'm still scared, even though I don't like how I feel right now. It's okay for me to let that in a little bit more and see what else is possible. We are not meant to live from that same consciousness for another 10, 20, 30 years for the rest of your life, living from the hamster wheel. So what would it be like if I actually let something higher in and could begin to receive abundance, that my body receives energy? I'm not healing myself. I'm not working hard to get it. I surrender so it can come through me. That's what heals your body. And that is actually what's going to show you a whole new way of doing life, that lets opportunities come in, that lets possibilities come in that you didn't think existed, that lets you remember that your job is not your source, that your source is your source, that your connection within yourself is your source. And this interconnection will open the possibilities for you to see, oh, wait a minute, maybe I could do it that way. Yeah. And move toward things and let opportunities present themselves to you that maybe seemed impossible. This is what I mean when I'm saying we're using all of our brain. We're operating with a new brain and a new consciousness. So see what you might be able to let in. And if you're one of those COVID long haulers, or if you're in a chronic fatigue, brain fog, and chronic illness pattern, just begin to let that pause in to let your wisdom inform you. All right, I am at drkimd.com. We're doing a live broadcast every week on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Mountain, so you can tune in for that. And I'll be going deeper into some of these things I touched on today, this week. We also have the mind-body solution for chronic fatigue and brain fog available. So if you want to go deeper with this, I bring you through some really profound integrations for your nervous system, for your immune system. It's a rewrite for your system. You don't have to keep fighting disease. Your body can heal, but you've got to set up the conditions that allow it to do that. And so it can be really easy and really fluid. We've had amazing reports in the mind body community and Facebook from people who've participated in the program and what has come in for them already. So I'm very excited to be sharing that. So lots of love for everyone who's been here live, for everybody who's in YouTube, because we'll post it there. You're welcome. Thanks, Stella. The Mind Body Fatigue program is amazing. Thank you. Oh, awesome. Amy said chronic fatigue is the best program I've done so far. So much is integrating, so much allowing. Oh, I love you guys. So it's great to see people like encouraging each other with this. Sanmar84 said this is perfect right now since I have the virus. Yep. So how can I surrender and let the rewrite happen? It may be very uncomfortable. You may really wish you weren't going through this experience, but try to lighten up on that, because that's just going to create more resistance in your system. When I was experiencing this, it was like, how is this the best thing that could happen for me? How could I allow, because it's going to just take over your system, right? It's like, what's this process that's happening? How can I allow this to be the greatest gift I've ever received for a rewrite, physically, mentally, emotionally? Because when we change our DNA, we really do allow, we can allow a massive upgrade. Unlock your light. Oh, hello. Great to see you here. Thank you, Kim. I'm pausing to receive it. Thank you, Susan. Oh, what did I just lose? Okay, great. So good to see you guys here. Susan Kenny. So I will be, like I said, live this Wednesday at 11 a.m. If you want to join me for that, we'll go deeper into some of these pieces. And yeah, I'd love to hear just what you witness with this, even this idea that, whoa, there could be something good happening in my body when I feel bad. What if we stop making disease wrong and start really letting in what is happening in our wisdom? All right, lots of love. Thanks for being here. I'll see you soon.